Ropecon.
Welcome to our presentation about Astraterra. What would be the proper pronunciation for that, by the way? I've been wondering about it. Is it like a Astraterra?
Astraterra.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll tell you a bit more about the game itself and about the translation process. So we have kind of like two topics here. And why we're telling about the game is because we haven't actually really had a representation about the game in English before. So we would like to introduce the game, but also the translation has been an interesting process. Jukka can tell more about that, but let us introduce ourselves first. So I'm Miska Fredman, designer of the game, and RPG designer and publisher in general. Astraterra was my fifth published role-playing game, and my sixth game is coming out in a few months. I'm also a dad. I think that's like worth mentioning because that's like one of the important things that I identify with, and of course I'm also a known sci-fi nerd. And here
I'm Jukka Särkijärvi. Like it says, I run conventions, and I translate role-playing games. I've translated burger games, a Stalker RPG, into English, and I've translated a game called The Whispering Road in Finnish, which no one has ever heard of. It's by Grand P. Rules Museum. I also blog about RPGs and occasionally contribute to other people's games.
And I've heard that you are meddling with different conventions here in Finland at least.
Yeah, I used to be on the Ropecon convention committee for several years, and they still haven't entirely let me go. Whenever I mention that I only have a few presentations at this convention, I get hit with a dozen small jobs that need doing.
That's only fair. Okay, a bit of background for Astraterra and where it comes from. So the original idea is actually much older than the game itself. It's somewhere from 2007, 2008. I found out some old forum postings about the original concept, and it was supposed to be more like anime style action adventure, but it really didn't work. Something didn't quite work. So we put it on hiatus and kind of forgot about that for a few years. But then it was spring 2013. My kids had grown up a bit. My older son was at that time 10 or so, or 11, and I wrote a quick one-page concept, quickly simplified some things and removed some of the complicated terminology and so on, and let my son read it and asked how do you like this? Would you like to try out this? We had played role-playing games with my three older kids for a few times before, with their homegrown game systems with very simple mechanics, and my son thought that, hey, this is really nice. That this would be nice to try. It sounds like Skylanders, he said. So I thought that, oh yeah, that's actually pretty nice. Then I wrote the character creation and went quickly through the mechanics, and well, I was supposed to publish it that summer already, but then when I contacted the illustrators, they said that, well, we would like to have some summer vacation, so we skipped that, and had like 1 year more of development time, which was actually very good thing. And after a year, I was in a kind of a situation that earlier I had published all the games with my, so to say, like own money or loan money, and but at that time, like crowdfunding was kind of a thing, and actually Mika Pohjola had done crowdfunding for Myrskysankarit earlier, like a year back, and I thought that, hey, maybe I could try this too. So I gave it a try, and it actually went quite well. We got all the money that we needed for like a hardcover book with color pages, and yeah, that was like an excellent thing. And so I took like a first printing of 500 copies, but that was kind of a mistake because I ran out of the books in 9 months, and there hasn't been any more books since that. And like in this convention, for example, people have been asking like, well, some with the guy who's working in the vendors hall with me, he said that people have asked Astraterra like 100 times, and no kidding. So we need to get more of those books. But anyway, we already had started the English translation. It has taken a while, but we'll let you know more about that in a few minutes. Yeah. Here's sort of like a first mood illustration that we used in marketing back in like 2013. It was like maybe in the summer or fall. And these are still like the basic elements that the game has. Like there's like these explorers that the players play in the game. There's a far gate that's like an essential thing for the whole setting, and then these floating islands that the world consists of. And then some kind of like an ancient temple or other like a structure that's like looming on the background, and the explorers are trying to figure out how to get there. And before we go to other stuff, like I mentioned that I started to design and play this game with my kids, and so is this only for kids? There was actually a game, like we were like trying to figure out one translation for the game, and I asked from, I don't know if anybody knows James W. Bowles. He's pretty active in Google Plus at least, and he plays a lot of RPGs with his kids, and I asked that how do you like this translation and so on, and the first question that he asked, that is this game intended only for kids, based on the translation that I suggested. So I think that it's worth a mention that we started this as like a kids role-playing game, but quite quickly we found out that for example, my friends, when we were playtesting the game, they actually liked playing the game, and then one friend of mine who GM'd the game or playtested the game with some teenagers, they really liked the game also, so I thought that, hey, this is not only for kids. And since then we've been comparing this a bit with animated movies. It has different layers. It works with kids, but also it has these a bit more deeper layers that work more or better with adults. It has these word plays, some hidden jokes and so on that gives it other aspects that adults might get but kids don't. Here's another illustration for the game. There's on the left side there's a solar. They are these kind of elves with wings, kind of fairy kind creatures. And then there's a Caven, kind of replaces dwarves from fantasy settings. They're these a bit short and stocky, but very strong and very But yeah, how to translate rapulainen? Please let me know.
Yeah, rapulainen in the game is it's a prime example of something that's very difficult to translate. It's a pun. It means in the game it's crab folk. They like what was it?
Salty and fatty food.
Yeah, and they dislike loud noises. The pun here is that in Finnish, krapula means hangover. Fortunately, we resolved this when we figured out that the Finnish krapula actually comes from Greek krapales, which means hangover, through Latin krapula, which means hangover, and this actually is also found in English, just no one uses the word. So we can call them crapulums, and some people will get the joke. I think not everything has to be understandable to everyone.
Yeah, certainly. One thing in the translation was always like a theme and tone. That's like a in the Finnish version, it is kind of like playful, the language that it uses. So that's one thing also in the translation that had to be taken into account.
Yeah, I'm trying in my translation to utilize what the author Capellenti called the children's book register. She'd written this very dark children's book, and or short story, I think, and she wasn't sure if the editor would approve it. It had some very grim content, and when she got it back from the editor, the only notes were that she should cut down on secondary clauses. So, just primary clauses. The presentation of the text has to be fairly simple for children. The content can be anything.
Can you give an example about secondary clauses?
Sivulause.
Okay. Now I get it.
Yeah, and the process of translating a game is first we write the raw text, and then we start wondering if these terms we are using are really the right ones. Could we come up with a better translations for the game concepts and the setting concepts? And then we revise, and then we second guess ourselves, and then we revise some more, and at some point we will have the ideal, perfect version of the text, hopefully.
And more about the translation, like in the upcoming slides, when it's relevant. But here's a first illustration of the explorers themselves, and well, the idea about the setting was that it's a world that has been once in its golden age. There was this a ring world built around a small sun, and that shattered and collapsed the whole civilization. And now the civilization has again reached the brink of the steam age and the industrial age. And well, the gear here that the guys have, they are a bit modern, but it fits the game still. But we worked on the outfits of the characters more after this was done.
Also not the pet monkey.
Yeah, pets were an important thing in the game. Okay, but as mentioned, the setting itself, it's about the ring world that has shattered into thousands of bigger and smaller shards. The biggest shards are continent-sized, and the smaller ones are basically rocks floating in this endless sky. And I'll show you a map in a while that explains a bit better the world. But what was a first misunderstanding that we encountered with the setting was that people were thinking that it's a space, a black space with these floating rocks. But it's actually it's a big blue sky that expands like very far away from the like the biggest these like shards or floating islands, and that was something that we had to like tackle with the illustration. Basically, there's a very good picture coming up in a few minutes, and some like important sources for the inspiration. I mentioned already Skylanders. That was one thing that my kids were very excited about at that time. But also like Stargate. Please.
No, I just have no idea what Skylanders is.
Who knows what Skylanders is? You know, yeah, it's a. Who knows what's Disney Infinity? Okay, so Skylanders was actually the first game, at least that I know about. It was made for the consoles like Wii and PlayStation, Xbox, and you have this little like what was it called? Some kind of like a portal. This little platform that you plug in with USB to the console device, and you have these little figures that you put on the portal platform, and then you actually get the figure in the game as a character. But the game world was it was also like a big sky with floating islands, like, and that's the thing. But anyway. Then other inspirations were like Laputa, Castle in the Sky, Treasure Planet, Avatar, also Dune to some extent, and of course Indiana Jones with its all like exploration stuff, Star Wars certainly, and Dungeons and Dragons with the exploration aspects, and so on. And here's a picture of the endless sky with these like how did you translate those like balls, by the way?
The sun sail ships.
Yeah, sun sail ships, right? And then those floating islands there, and the sun sail ships were actually the most important means of travel before the fargates activated again, like a couple of decades ago. Yeah, so in this world there are ancestors. And any background on how we came up with this translation? There's like lots of different possibilities for this, like precursors or whatever you are used to.
I can't remember the process we led to that specific one, but I think most of the key concepts we translated together during one or two meetings in a bar, as these things often happen.
Yeah, there were like a couple of like these main elements like Astratech, animatons, and so on that we put on paper that these should be called like this, and then you got pretty much like a free hands to do.
Yeah, animatons all yours, and that's excellent.
Yeah, yeah. The ancestors are they are the ancestors of the Astraterms. They are the ones who built the ring world and also brought it down. And they are the ones who built the Astratech devices, these like technological treasures, basically like magic devices that you can find. There's like nano potions and code scrolls, and
they are the technology sufficiently enhanced.
Yeah, but don't tell anyone. But there's like nanotechnology everywhere in the world. And the code scrolls, for example, they just activate different different features of the nanotechnology, and that's also why the endless sky is possible. Okay, but yeah, the animatons they are like robots with AIs, and of course like mysterious ruins that's like remnants of the old world. But then there's also this one, well, there are the fargates, but also Ethereum. That's the magic fuel that's in the world, and it's the leftovers of the old world, and all the like the Astratech and animatons and so on. They use Ethereum, but there has been found ways to like burn Ethereum so that it's like a very potent fuel, but there are limited resources of that. Here's a map of the world, and to like give a quick brief description of different places here. So where the ring used to be, that's called the belt. It's a bit more stable area, but then like some smaller shards, like the gravity of the sun is pulling the smaller shards here, and they have formed these arms or branches, these spiraling arms that go into the tempest, which is some kind of like a weird cloud, kind of obfuscating the sun, and it has some weird effects on these islands that go through the tempest. We were yesterday talking about changing the name to something else, but let's see.
I keep mixing up tempest and vortex.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me.
Yeah. But for example, there's like the changed lands. They are places with giant insects and different mutated forests and that sort of stuff. So this has like some weird mutating effects on different organisms that come to this area. And then beyond the tempest, there's the vortex or the maelstrom. That is like it's a very hot and dry place. Like the sun is blazing in the sky all the time, and everything's like burned into scorched desert, not desert.
Like rapulainen.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's like three big factions, or like what, governments?
Yeah, big countries, nation states.
Yeah, nation states. That's good. Like there's this good kingdom of Escalon. That's very like 15th century or 14th century Europe kind of thing, with some like wizards going around there with their pointy hats and so on. And then there's the Arcadian dynasties, which is led by queen, who's very interested or like very into different games, and there's all like islands of Fantasia within the domain of Arcadian dynasties, and that's more like a fantastic place. It's a bit like what's it, the Arabian, the Thousands of One.
The Arabian Nights.
Yeah, the Arabian Nights, and then mixed with like a Greek mythology and that sort of like a setting. And then there's the Malorian Empire, which is the like the most advanced, technologically most advanced, and they are like the steampunk place. They have these like Noki, like
Suit.
Stained cities, and like everything's smoky and so on. And they have expanded a lot. They are like the old England in a way, and they've like taken over lots of the smaller islands. Like there's the Malorian colonies, and they've like they're like taken all the resources from those, and they are left like barren, and everyone's exploited. They are the bad guys, but they don't think they are the bad guys, of course. Yeah, those are like the big things there. Here's like a picture of the changed lands in the tempest, like giant insects and weird forests with giant trees and mushrooms and so on. Here's a picture of the vortex. And there's a go-roll lizard that the guy is riding there, and they are kind of like the usual mount. Yeah. Like instead of horses, there are go-roll lizards. here's a picture of Escalon. So they're like these big, like steam jack, like steam engines.
I don't think we're allowed to call them steam jacks.
Yeah, we are not. They're steam jack like.
Yeah.
But I think the illustrator was very inspired of one other game. Then a bit about the heroes. So the heroes are by default teleport explorers. They are kind of like adventurers and heroes going after the treasures that are found beyond the far gates. And the idea about the far gates is that when the ring world was intact, all the far gates they formed this big network. But then when the ring world broke, also the connections between the gates were lost. And now that they are again activated, you don't really know what's beyond the gate that you have. And
so you're sending the explorers.
Yeah. And the deal is usually that you go to the other side of the far gate and try to activate this like a central pillar that's that powers the other far gates beyond the first one. So the objective is kind of like to expand the network all the time. And the deal is that you get to keep all the treasure that you can carry with you through the gate back home if you get back home. And there's also like the gates can be they're not that big. Only one person at a time can fit through it, and that's the reason why these are like these small groups, and they don't send like big parties or armies through the gates. It's a level-based system, and characters are consisted of two main elements: the species and the role. Basically, species and the character class. Too bad I didn't have the sheets with me. I could have shown that there's actually like two different character sheets that you pick from, and then you just combine them. Here's pictures of these four main characters that are also represented in the book. There's like a small side notes written in the book, like the book would have been in the hands of these four adventurers. And there's like should I say, interesting dynamic between the characters that you can figure out when you read the side notes. That Tigera is all the time picking or meddling with Batrotus.
Yeah. Who is the straight man of the group, except for maybe perhaps thinks he knows more than he actually does.
And then Mercus Melchior is he's a specialist in different kind of creatures, and I actually wrote a small supplement about it's Otus Mechanicus, so like a creature mechanicus basically, and it has a selection of additional mechanical or constructed creatures, and it's written by Mercus Melchior, what he has found out on his exploration travels. And there's also what are the different races. There's humans, Solars, Cavens, and Chimeras. Chimera. And chimeras, they are basically any kind of human animal hybrids. And then the roles are Doctor, Daredevil, Star Knight, and Mechanic. And the Star Knights they don't have any special powers as such, but they are these like these knights with long traditions, and they travel around trying to protect people and look out for or look for different threats for the society.
Yeah. In addition to the obvious inspiration, note the star. They are the wandering sheriffs.
Yeah. And well, there's one word play too. They have this well, in Finnish, the lightsaber from Star Wars is called valmiekka, and these Star Knights, they have this sword made out of an element or material called wild silver. It's basically like a nanotechnological alloy, and it's called jalomiekka, which is like a what was the translation? Sorry.
I think we call it a lightsaber.
Lightsaber, yeah.
Though I admit that I stole that one from China Yale.
And the special thing about the lightsaber is that you can have it as a single big sword, or it can divide into two smaller swords. Then there's of course different kinds of creatures. There's the crapulans in the center, and then I wanted to include different kinds of like familiar creatures, but have them or give them this like a new like
a fresh spin.
Fresh spin, yeah. So there's a cyclops, or cyclops. Is it cyclops or cyclops?
No, Cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah.
But I blame the Greek.
Yeah, and then what was the translation? Filbers.
Filch, maybe.
Filch. Okay, but anyway, these like filchers.
Yeah.
They are like small creatures that live all around Astraterra, and they are like goblins in a way, but they have this like a kind of like rubbery suit and this big helmet, and nobody knows really why. But if you lose a sock or a pen or your keys, it's probably taken by one of these creatures. They built like these small trapdoors and like secret like passages all around the cities and everywhere. So you never know when one of those comes up. And then of course there's like the giant insects and giant spiders. By the way, giant spiders really like when you like rub their stomach and they can start to purr. My kids told me that. And many of the creatures are actually done in collaboration with my kids. They were not only the play testers, but they were also like the designers of the game in a way that of course I kind of helped out to like make up the mechanics and so on. But oftentimes they brought me an illustration that hey, here's a creature that we would like to have there, and it's like this and this, and then we include it in the game. And there's lots of other stuff too besides the creatures, and like the world setting has lots of influence from my kids. And then about the Astratech or the tech treasures that the world has. So I already mentioned the wild silver and Ethereum, and the wild silver is also one like an interesting thing that we the translation because it's like it's a silvery metal alloy, and it was called it's in Finnish it's jalhopea, like a straight translation would be something like a noble silver.
Yeah.
But
we went through a lot of different translations of that one.
Yeah, that's true.
I think wild silver is also yours.
Yeah, I think it was, but yeah, the translation came from because it's harder than any metal that exists, the wild silver. But when you know how to manipulate it with with some certain alchemical methods, it becomes something that you can mold with your hands, basically. And it has these like strange properties that are hard to control, and that's why we came up with the wild silver. That this kind of like it is something weird. Like I think there's some inspiration from the wildfire from Game of Thrones.
Possibly.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, anyway, it's something that's very powerful, very kind of like precious, but also something that's very hard to control. So that's why like a wild silver. And then the nano potions, they could have been something else, but wanted to give them this like a fantasy feel, but still like also include something that they are something else than magic. Same thing with cold scrolls. And Astratech in general, like different devices, there's a, for example, a small flower-like device that you put behind your ear, and when you hear like a weird language, it translates it for you.
It's much more comfortable than starting a fish up your ear.
Here's like a picture of one of the adventures in the game. Like there's three ready adventures in the book. That kind of like it starts from this like a kind of like a practice adventure, and then you move into actual actual adventures.
I love how the guy in eye patch goes. The straps under his jaw.
Yeah. And in the adventure, you can find a skeleton, like it's an old temple ruin, and you can find a skeleton there, and it has like a fedora and a leather whip. A bit about the game mechanics. It's a D6 based dice pool system, very simple. You have like your stats, and then you might add a die or two from different aspects or traits the character has. And every die that goes 4+ is a success, and 6s explode. So this is something that like kids really loved when we like play tested the game. They rolled the dice and then exploding dice, and then roll more, and it was very rewarding and also like tactile when you have the dice actually on your hands. And the system also encourages creativity and cooperation. There's like some ways that the players can like by giving a good description or like that way they can have some extra dice, but only a certain amount, so you cannot like try to beg for more and more. Okay, so what do we have now? We have the finished hardcover book with color illustrations. It's A4 size, 176 pages. We also made back in 2014 some like these like pre-filled character sheets. So they have the basic information that you basically just like pick a species and roll, and then add like a couple of things that you like to add there, and you're ready to go. I think it's like under 5 minutes that you can basically create a character. And we made a small GM screen, and now just for this Ropecon we published 2 new supplements, the Otus Mechanicus with creatures, and then Mutkia Matkassa, which is like a collection of 3 adventures. Then there's like a bunch of free adventures that people can download from Astraterra.fi. And the community has been like really generous in making like content available. And then there's like other little merchandise like coffee mugs, postcards, and so on. Here's a quick picture of the character sheets, how they look, and some of the layout of the book and the cover. And we have the translation pretty much done.
Yeah, I haven't yet translated. I think I'm missing the creatures mostly.
Yeah.
Because those have all the difficult puns.
Yeah. And we were actually supposed to start the pre-sales a bit before Ropecon, but then, well, it's always nice to have some vacation, and there was like people were busy with other stuff basically. And also, one reason why we decided to delay the pre-sales a bit was that I've been quite busy with other projects, so I haven't really had time to blog about Astraterm, for example. What I used to do for the Finnish one was I had basically a development blog for a year, and I told people about I wrote these little reports about our play testing and so on, and I haven't had time to do that for the English version, and I really would like to let people know a bit more about Astraterm before we actually put on or launch the pre-sales. It's gonna be on Indiegogo because of the Finnish law. We can't have Kickstarter here. A few years back, I talked with Luke Crane. The Kickstarter was supposed to come in Finland. At the same time, it came to Sweden and other Nordic countries, but we have a crappy money collection law that basically prohibits Kickstarter from coming into Finland. So we are using Indiegogo. It's a good second choice. So yeah, after Ropecon, I have a clear goal to start blogging about Astraterra. So stay tuned, and you can follow Astraterra.fi or Astraterra in Facebook. Those are the places that I'm most active in. Do you have anything to add for this slide?
Not much. Well, I also have a blog, and it's been quiet for quite a few months, but I'm not trying to reactivate it, and I will be blogging about the Astraterra translation once stuff comes up. Those will be linked on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
And Twitter, I suppose.
Yeah. So
Twitter.
Yeah. Here's a few URLs or web links, and often when I put something on social media, I use hashtag Astraterra. So that's where you can find us from and learn more about the game if you're interested. Yeah, finally the game is really coming out. People have been asking about it a lot. There are a few people on the internet that are regularly asking me, so is it coming out now, or is it coming? It's summer already. Is it out? So on. But yeah, now it's really coming out, and I hope it's before Christmas.
Yeah. And we were still faster than Chinese democracy, or Duke forever.
Yeah. So, any questions from the audience?
What does the quick start rules include?
Quick start.
Yeah, there was an English quick start on the last one.
Oh. It's not yet out, the quick start, but we have an English preview.
Yeah, there's
what is quick start?
Setting prior. That's a translation of the very first introductory chapter of the rulebook. That's available.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is available, and what I was supposed to do, but obviously totally forgot about it, which is kind of embarrassing, but was that to include some of the character creation rules, like one class and one species, or two species perhaps, and some equipment. So basically you can start with the quick start rules, but it's of course like a very small slice of the whole book. But this is how the preview looks. So there's like a bit about the game, the map, about the power gates and the basic setting and premise of the game. And then quick explanation of the rules and this small like example play. So this is what's included already. So I'll add perhaps about 10 pages to this before we start the pre-sales, but I'll try to do it as soon as possible. It's translated already, so basically it's only about doing the layout. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are you planning to put it up for sale electronically?
Yeah. For practical reasons, I'm probably gonna put it on one bookshelf, like a Drive to RPG and RPG Now, so it will be available in PDF format, but also as print on demand. But depending on how well the pre-sales go, if it goes really well, I know that there are some services that I can partner with that can handle like the global shipping. So it's always a better choice to have actually like a printed book instead of like a POD, I think. And why? Because the print-on-demand books, they have like a certain restrictions that, for example, in a POD book, you cannot have in the inner cover, like we have in the book, in the inner cover, we have this like a big map there, and you cannot have in the POD. So, if it's possible, we would like to have it like an actually printed book, and then ship it around with all the swag that comes with it.
Things are out of time.
Wow, good. Good. Yeah, but thank you.
Ropecon.